Dahl here in Vernon, British Columbia, and I'm joined by Ted Olson, who resides in Flin Flon. As many of you already know, Ted has an amazing story. His entire life story is actually quite amazing. I met Ted through a very interesting set of circumstances when I was in Saskatchewan working on one of our gold properties. I had heard about Ted and his amazing life and everything that he's done in Saskatchewan and in Manitoba, from opening hunting lodges and becoming an excellent carver, and just many different things that I've learned about Ted over the last number of months. So how are you doing, Ted?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Really good. Nice day in Vernon. You know, we've got a little bit of snow, not as much as you would have in Saskatchewan, Manitoba. It's I don't know how much time you spent in the Okanagan, but we get a lot of overcast weather here, so we don't get the sunshine that you get in Saskatchewan and in Manitoba. It's actually something that a lot of people miss when they come from the prairies. I grew up in Saskatchewan, so I miss the big open skies and the sunshine. And in the winter in British Columbia, we just don't get the nice sunshine days during the winter.
No. That's one thing obviously we get here, but with beautiful sunshine also comes this morning it was minus 30 below, but that keeps the mosquitoes away, so it is good to have that too. And we have about I would say for sure 3 feet of snow, but that's covering our beautiful boreal forest that I live amongst up here. It has covered the flowers for the winter, and the bears are sound asleep, and everything is very, very peaceful and very quiet. And so we have many, many beautiful things going for us here too.
That sounds, yeah, I mean, as I said, I grew up in Saskatchewan, and, as a very young boy, my dad, when I was, I believe, we started fishing quite early in Regina, an area where I grew up, and especially close to the farm. We homesteaded around the Swift Current area. But I was very fortunate when I was around 10 or 11 or 12, my dad would take me up into Mississippi. And, that's where I really started to enjoy the north. And I think even a lot of people within Saskatchewan don't realize, the different systems that exist in Saskatchewan from the the south to the deep north. And I always tell people I'm actually amazed when I go to northern Saskatchewan how similar it is to northern British Columbia.
Yeah, Saskatchewan is basically, I think, divided in two parts because many Eastern Canadians say, well, when you drive through Saskatchewan, you see nothing but sky and prairie, and everything is flat. However, that changes big time once you leave Prince Albert and come north. It then turns into the most beautiful outdoor activity that you can hope for in the wide world, and that's what made me leave Germany as a young man to seek the beautiful boreal forest and the many beautiful gifts that are presented within that forest. And it is simply a different world. It's I call it the biggest shopping center in the world, Sherman, because you can find beauty no matter where you look. It is full of beauty, whether it's the 100,000 lakes we have, or whether it's all the different animals walking that you can spot along the shoreline of these beautiful lakes. and the trees, the tamaracks and the spruce and pine and birch. And I've lived in this for 54 years, and it is no wonder that I don't take any medication for my body, because it has never gone wrong in 54 years.
Well, that's a wonderful thought, and I think part of the purpose of this podcast is through the work that we're doing with the Emily Dahl Foundation, which was set up in 2019 when my daughter passed away, is part of my search over the last year and a half to 2 years is to really try and better understand the nature of our being here on Earth. And I think this podcast again is maybe a start in a number of conversations that you and I can have, Ted, over the coming months and years, to help others see the importance of connecting with nature. And we did that wonderful evening on last Tuesday, which was about an hour and a half presentation of various speakers and wonderful songs. And as you know, and actually sitting with me right now in Vernon, I have some of your amazing carvings, but in particular, the lamp that I got from you, which, and all the work that I've got from you with the boreal forest and the Canadian willow and the limestone. And, I wonder if you could just, talk a little bit about, the work you do and how the carvings and the ones that I have. I mean, I've got my own feelings about those things and how they've really helped me understand the awakening that's happened within myself. And I think part of the goal of the Emily Dahl Foundation is to fulfill the wishes of Emily. Emily was an amazing young lady that had compassion and energy and enthusiasm and was always trying to help others. And so when you lose somebody that is that close to you, you really should have the determination to get up every day and fulfill the wishes of the person that's passed away. And it just also happens to be that, if Emily was seeking happiness, shouldn't we all be seeking happiness? And maybe just talk a little bit about the teachings that you've gone through with me, and in particular, as I sit here and look at this wonderful work, how you sort of describe that.
Well, I think that's what I maybe meant by the beautiful gifts that the great Canadian boreal forest gives us. It is all over, and that particular lamp that I'm talking about, I want you to know that when it was carved, and I have no idea how many hours, but hundreds and hundreds and maybe 1,000 hours, but every time it gave me pleasure working with that. And I also want you to know that within that lamp are the spirits of the boreal forest. They're in the lamp, and they will support and be with Emily. So that my carving started. As you know, I lost my eyesight due to a hunting accident, and it was then that I gradually learned that we have basically two sides to us. One is the outside, where everybody can recognize you by sight because of your hair color or because of your height or your weight. But then there's the other side, and that's the inside of us. And the inside of us, nobody else knows the inside of us. And within the inside, there are many, many unbelievable possibilities too. And these possibilities came out for me actually after I lost my eyesight. I learned so many things that I could do without, and the carving led me to one Sunday. One of the native people in the Shambo, where I had the lodge, the fishing lodge, came out of the forest with a piece of Canadian diamond willow, and he handed it to me, and I felt it, and that piece impressed me so much that I searched for more. And as you learn to work with it, it talks to you. There are times, Sherman, where I will take a piece of diamond willow and I will feel it and turn it in my hands and feel it again, and it will not talk to me. It will not form a picture within my inner eye. It will. So I put it aside and I pick up another piece. But eventually it will talk to you and it will communicate with you. And when I start working with it, it gives me a peaceful world that I don't know how else to describe it, but it is a different world than we as humans maybe recognize. So each piece of wood that I have carved, and I have carved many pieces ended up in Europe. Pieces ended up with the international director for Lionism from Honolulu, Hawaii. John Gregory, the Saskatchewan head coach, who came to my camp for 30 years, he has pieces. So these pieces are scattered, but they make a connection. And I like to believe that you have objects in your house that should start a story. And especially if there are items that you cannot just go and buy. To go and buy lamps, well, I imagine Walmart has 30, 40, or 200 of them, all the same. But this is different. Plus, I like to bring the boreal forest. I like to reintroduce nature back into society. I believe that society has gone away because of technology, so they have turned their back on Mother Nature and think that they can do better than Mother Nature. But so that's my aim, is to bring young people back into nature, put put your iPhone away, come into the boreal forest, become part of it, what we really are. And with that, I would like to introduce people to carving and go with them, and they can find their own beautiful presence. How much time I have left, I don't know. I'm 82, but that's what I would like to do for younger people. And I have had over the years where I donated my camp for 2 weeks in the month of August, and I had disabled people, kids especially, come up they used to come up for 4 or 5 days, and those were the most memorable times that I ever had, sitting with those children in the evening, being out with them, and see how they really act truthfully and honestly when they're out in nature. So that is sort of my belief, that I like to see young people coming back and back into nature.
So those are awesome thoughts, Ted. And in order to, we're running around the 20-minute mark, which I think is an ideal sort of target for our first podcast. There's going to be more. I would like to, end this podcast by telling you a quick story. I had one of Emily's closest friends over last night, and actually the day before, because she's back in Vernon visiting from Edmonton. And both her and another girl that was also very close with Emily, have been really working on understanding themselves better and happiness, and there's never really enough of that. And I gave one of the beautiful lamps to her name is Dana Kiewit, who's an amazing, bright young lady that is very interested in opening up that inner door and exploring things. And I've done this now very successfully with a number of young people where, I've described the lamp and the essence of how we're all interconnected and the interbeing reality of us. And I can tell you, Ted, it really does work. And therefore, the Emily Dahl Foundation and our relationship, I think, will just continue to grow. And just so our listeners know, Ted and I are just getting started. And I can tell already we're going to have, this is podcast number 1 for, let's call it TED Talks or call it whatever you want. But, we're going to do more. So we don't need to do it all today, but this gives you a little bit of a taste of the inner engineering that Ted has been doing his whole life, and something that the Emily Dahl Foundation is 100% committed to helping others. And I think, all the thoughts and beliefs and teachings of Ted are very much in line with the Emily Dahl Foundation. And Ted, I think you should know that as recently as last night, we've touched people in a real way, and not on the outside. And you said to me once recently that, Sherm, you can put a $500 jacket on somebody and it won't make any difference. And we really want to make a difference. We want to help others, be happy. Yeah.
Yeah. And like I said, having spent because of the accident, and maybe it was meant in my life. We all have only so much time here, and what we do with it is up to us. And I have never regretted spending my time where I have, my family where I have, and even though at the age of 22, when I was told that I would be blind for the rest of my life, that's not an easy thing to do. But since that time on, it has been Mother Nature that has healed me and made me see the great things under this blue sky. And if I may, I'd like to leave you with a little poem that somebody once said to me sitting around the campfire one night. And it goes, I am not sad, I cannot see, for nature brings much joy to me. The gentle winds and the gentle rains bring vision to my eyes again. And I never forgot that.
That's really lovely, Ted. And I think I'm going to end on this final note and really want to thank you, Ted, for spending this time with me today. No, not to mention the hours of conversations we've already had and for the many, many more. And there's no question that, Ted and I have uncovered, something special between us, and it is something that's inside. And, Ted had his accident and his experience of life. And I do believe that, Ted and I have both reflected on when Emily passed away and how that changed me. And we have another 24 hours ahead of us every day to really, find peace and happiness. So thanks a lot, Ted.
Okay. Been great talking to you.
Great talking to you, Ted. We'll talk soon.